Welcome to another jam-packed episode of Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful and comfortable confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast out not only here on YouTube, but on Substack, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks. Happy to be here with you guys today, guys. I'm going to be presenting to you 32 teams in 32 days. We're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and Seattle Seahawks, looking at their offseason approach and outlook and my predictions for the 2025 season. But before we get into that, I definitely want to make sure we give a shout out to a couple friends of the show. Right now, we're gearing up towards the end of the summer. We got a couple weeks before we all got to get back to the grind. Kids going back to school, work, things of that nature. Definitely want to make sure we're getting the most of our summer. So I implore you to definitely check out StubHub, the #1 leader, ticket seller in the world for live events to shows and concerts. Definitely implore you to check it out. As you'll see here on the screen, we have the Beyonce Cowboy Carter tour going in full force. Definitely make sure you check the Creative ID link for that. We got Coldplay currently on tour. You got Post Malone's F1 Trillion tour, Chris Stapleton, Drake's is All a Blur tour. So many different events to get out to this summer. Also as well, baseball, playoff swing, playoff hunt is in full effect, wild card hunt. Definitely implore you to check out the ticket links that are available on the screen as you can see here. Also, as well, for my StubHub subscribers, if you're looking to get some tickets to some preseason games, try to get to the early part of the kickoff games, maybe catch that Eagles game or whatever your team may be, Bengals or Seahawks, whomever, definitely check out the Creative ID link within the description of this video. Also, Morgan Wallen, Paul McCartney, and the U.S. Open Tennis Championship tickets are also available through September 7th. Definitely make sure you get that. That would be at Flushing Meadows. And for my Viagogo subscribers, of course, FIBA basketball tournament is in full effect. We also have Oasis going on tour right now, Formula One, and also summer music festivals, a bunch of different ones going on right now in the UK, and Blackpink's Deadline World Tour, which is definitely going to be available. Now, the FIBA Eurobasket 2025 tickets, those tickets are going to be, that series and event starts on August 27th. However, the Creative ID link will be available in the description box of the screen. So if you're looking to definitely get to any of those events, I would definitely implore you to check it out. And for my avid PlayStation gamers out there, gamers period, I definitely implore you to check the description box for the link within this video. It's a PlayStation Direct. I've been a PlayStation user for over 30 years now, and coincidentally, we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the PlayStation console itself. So definitely check it out. Definitely be a part of the celebration. There's, consoles, remotes, controllers, cameras, anything that you need to go with your whole PlayStation entertainment system and setup is definitely there available for you. Definitely don't forget to check it out. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. All right, guys. So like I said, going into this episode, we're going to start off, again, 32 teams in 32 days. We're going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. What a season last year for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ended kind of crazy for them. It was a situation where we all thought, with the way that they didn't start out hot as usual. Been the same old story for them for the past several years. So we kind of thought, okay, going into this year, they're going to come out hot. They're going to play well. Did not happen. Really lagged throughout the season. Ended the season on a 4-game winning streak. Ended up the season 9-8, missed the playoffs. A lot of it can be tangibly brought back to a Patriots game that happened early last season. That loss ultimately cost them. But it really put the Bengals behind the 8 ball. And it just, going into this year, the message is clearly no more slow starts. As you can see here on the screen, the history of slow starts, especially with Joe Burrow being at quarterback and Zach Taylor at the helm, it's kind of startling. It's very, very revealing the fact that these teams don't really come out prepared. Now, typically they don't prepare in the preseason. However, being that they just got done playing the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night, the starting offense, first string offense looked amazing. Jamarrchase looked good. Teehiggins looked good. Joe Burrow, I think he was 11 to 12. Again, amazing performance by Joe Burrow and the offense. Defense left a lot to be desired, which I'll touch on that briefly in a short minute too. But I mean, ultimately, the type of performance that you wanted to see from the starting offense out there. Very happy to see that the guys were, focused and channeled in. Joe Burrow was 9 of 10 for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns Thursday night. So again, play the way you wanted him to play. Your starting wide receiver showed up. You got Chase Brown some touches, so it all kind of worked out. But essentially, the defense. The slow starts, the defense is really the Achilles heel of the Cincinnati Bengals team. And it's really going to be a thing that cost them last year in big ways and could cost them going into this year. But with all that being said, we'd be remiss if we don't mention that the fucking front office is just incompetent. Mike Brown, Duke Tobin, the way that things are ran there in Cincinnati, not great by any stretch of the imagination. They just come off very cheap. Very insular, very, anal retentive as far as, how they want to spend their money. It's quite disgusting. I mean, you would think that you're drafting these guys, you think these guys are going to be, players or key components to help your roster or to be Bengals, for the long term, to be pillars within the community there in Cincinnati. And it just seems like Mike Brown is just very, very tight with the wallet, like just has no agenda, no thought process on what he really wants to do. He destroyed the defense by not wanting to pay Jesse Bates and those guys on the defensive side. You blame Lou Anarumo last year for the failures of the defense, which I think were more execution-based than anything, but what am I? I'm just a fan, just a guy who just casually watches it. But ultimately, Mike Brown and his cheapness and inability to have forward thinking, it just causes this team to be in the same conundrum, which is what I think also compounds the slow starts, because you'd be remiss to be, bullshitting yourself if you didn't acknowledge the fact that each time that they've had these slow starts, most times more than not, there's either been a Joe Burrow injury or a contract dispute. So it's just a situation where, again, the Bengals are not really, the front office is not really helping the team by doing things like this and allowing it to drag out. Hence, this year, Trey Hendrickson, Shamar Stewart. You got guys that can help your defense right now, which, again, the Achilles heel of this fucking team. The albatross that it just cannot be ignored. I mean, everyone knows offensively this team is top 10, no questions about it. Defensively, and you got the front office ultimately not wanting to pay these guys. That right there in itself is just kind of crazy. It's very inexplicable. But again, it's the Bengals, and it's what they do, and it's been their philosophy now for years. You would think with Joe Burrow being there, some of that has changed, and to a degree it has, but ultimately, Mike Brown is Mike Brown. His philosophy as far as contracts has not changed, has not evolved, and it really just hinders this team going forward. Hinders the coach, more importantly, too, because Zach Taylor, I think he's a very good coach. I don't think he has, sometimes he doesn't adjust well to things. I think at times that he thinks that, his guys are so good, they're just going to will themselves to victory. However, I do think that this year, if this team is unsuccessful in the manner that they expect to be, I do believe that Mike Brown is going to potentially put that blame on Zach Taylor. Going forward, defense. I mean, outside of being terrible last year, I mean, you got to really look at how bad they were, how the line of demarcation from 2 years ago to now, where this team was an elite defensive unit. Lou Anarumo had these guys playing top-notch fucking football, and then all of a sudden he gets fired, and again, Mike Brown not wanting to pay certain guys. The defense starts to degrade. You lose safeties, you lose some corners, you lose some linebackers, and now you're in a situation where you can't even stop a nosebleed. Again, they were able to win 4 straight to end the season, but it was more or less because the offense was just playing at a lights-out, pace. Joe Burrow having one of the best seasons ever by a quarterback to miss the playoffs. Again, Joe Burrow doing what he does best. It just, again, disgusting, very, very disgusting at how their season ended. They should have been in the playoffs. Definitely could have been a team competing for the Lombardi Trophy, but not handling their business early on just cost them. This year, this offseason seems like it's a slightly different approach. Sans, Jamarrchase and Teehiggins, but with Shamar Stewart now being back in the fold, signing his deal, Trey Hendrickson, that deal, I guess we're kind of waiting any day now to hear some news from that. But I think going into this year, the Bengals definitely are trying to start on a different foot and trying to go into it right. I think on the field it's looked well. I just don't know in the front office if that's going to carry forward. But for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think the most revealing thing is they cannot allow a bunch of mistakes, and they must be able to overcome the defensive inefficiencies for them to be elite this year. Because make no mistake about it, they're going to have to win a lot of games 31-28, 31-24, maybe 34-28. They're going to have to win a lot of games like that because their defense is really not that good. And really, just very, very fucking ineffective. And it really is a shame because they really, again, 2 years ago, you were talking about one of the top defensive units of football, and they have just cratered since then. Looking here at the offensive rankings that we have here, as you'll see on the screen, you have a Bengals team who is 6th in points, 9th in yards. So ultimately that shows you right there, offense moving the ball, offense doing what they need to do, top 10 offense. And even there in passing yards, they were number 1 in passing yards. Again, Joe Burrow had a phenomenal season here last year. I'll pull up his statistics too just to get into that. But, again, Joe Burrow and the way this offense ran, you knew for a fact, as long as he's healthy, these guys are going to be able to put up and be in contention. But, unfortunately, he doesn't play defensive end or corner, or linebacker, so that really doesn't help the Bengals in that situation. But going forward, looking at his stats from last year, he had 4,918 yards, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, passer rating of 108.5. Outstanding season. He hasn't had a season like that since 2021, which coincidentally, I believe was the Super Bowl season. So lets you know the type of year and the level that he was playing at. Joe Burrow definitely was on one last year. Defensively, atrocious. 25th in points, 25th in yards. And then if you look further, look into the passing yards, the Bengals are 21st. So 21st in passing yards. You're just not stopping anybody. That it's inexplicable, especially when you're in the AFC North. We're in a division where you're playing Lamar Jackson. You're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're playing fucking teams that can just spread you out. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know. It's just very inexplicable how they went about it. But then you look further into the offensive and defensive rushing statistics. Essentially what you have here is a situation where rushing the ball offensively didn't really look great at all. The Bengals didn't really even try to run the ball. They were 30th in attempts, 30th in yards. And that was really a lot of them miscalculating, misplaying their hand, not bringing in Joe Mixon, not making sure Joe Mixon was paid. And now they have a situation where they had to wait till Chase Brown really developed middle to end of the year for them to really start giving them touches and have confidence within the running game. So that was inexplicable right there in itself. Got to fix that going into 2025. Looking at the defense, though, again, 19th in rushing yards. You're not stopping anyone. You're always putting yourself at a disadvantage where you figure with Joe Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, you're going to be able to solve some problems. But it's just very, very crazy that they're always in a situation where you just don't know what the front office is going to do and how that's going to affect the team and what they're going to be able to do to possibly replace the talent that's lost. Because the free agency, make no mistake, you're looking here at the offseason moves. They couldn't spend any money. They had to spend money on Chase and Higgins. So you get Joseph Asai, you bring him back on a 1-year deal, whoop-de-doo. Bring back Cam Sample on a 1-year deal. You just re-sign Marco Wilson. BJ Hill signs a 3-year deal. That's great. But ultimately, between BJ Hill and the wide receivers, you don't really have anything. You got Samaje Perine back on a 1-year deal. You signed Oren Burks from Philadelphia. A lot of very cheap, inexpensive moves because you could only really afford to pay 3 guys this offseason because you didn't manage your cap well and you didn't plan accordingly for having to pay these guys, possibly all at the same time. So just very stupid by the Cincinnati Bengals, very inexplicable. And what it boils down to, the major question going into 2025 for the Bengals is, with the offseason that they've had, plus the injuries, a history that they've accumulated over time, can we trust this team to make it back to the playoffs? I tend to think yes. You look at it for a fact of, Joe Burrow had the year that he had. He played well. Offense was great. If this defense can at least be, if they can get anywhere from 25th to, let's say, 15th, they can be the 15th best defense this year. That gives the Bengals a chance to compete in the AFC, especially to win the championship, the AFC conference. Because make no mistake about it, they have the offensive firepower to compete. But when you can't stop anybody, you can't stop your shadow, a nosebleed, you can't punch yourself out of a wet paper fucking bag, it just becomes a situation where, again, 31-28, 34-28, 34-31. This is going to be your future, your outlook until you're able to really solidify on defense and build that culture and have that chemistry that Al Golden this year is looking to have, being the new defensive coordinator and implementing a new scheme and system. But make no mistake about it, even with all of that, I still think that they're a playoff team. I mean, hell, this team was one game away from locking up a playoff spot last year, and that was a rough year with all the inconsistencies they had. So, best case scenario, I have the Bengals at 11 wins. Worst case scenario, I have them at 9. You gotta just, looking at it for face value, can Burrow be better than what he was a year ago? There's a chance. But let's just say he's just as good. Get the defense to be ranked 15th. Now you got a situation where the Bengals are back, and maybe they're playing, for a number 1 seed, or maybe they're going on the road to play Arrowhead and play against the Chiefs. But you like your chances knowing the history. But that being said, a lot of work to do on defense, a lot of things to clean up. But I still say best case scenario, 11 wins for the Cincinnati Bengals. Going further, we're going to go into the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Seahawks, I mean, my God, when you talk about a team who, there's a lot of promise from last season, a lot of things that looked good, a lot of things that made you really feel like they were going to be great going into last year, and just, the disappointment. Ooh, I mean, first and foremost, you're talking about a Seattle team that went 10-7. Mike McDonald in his first season, very excited. A lot of people had a lot of hype, a lot of hope, going into this year. And ultimately what you saw was a team that looks like they can contend, looks like they can play the part, but unfortunately just maybe they're too young, maybe they're just too inexperienced, I don't know. But they did not play well enough in the games that they needed to lock up a playoff spot, which essentially cost them and put them out of it. I mean, it just, inexplicably, they were out of it. 10-7 missed the playoffs all because they couldn't lock up games that they had in their home, whether it be the Green Bay game late in the season. It was a plethora of games where, whether it was Geno turning the ball over or the defense not getting a stop when they needed it or the running backs getting a stop. It just inexplicable, and just put Seattle behind the 8 ball and just, essentially had them on the outside looking in as far as the playoff picture is concerned. But still a good year, still a good rookie season for a head coach. 10 wins is still hard in the NFL, especially in the NFC West, where you have, the Los Angeles Rams, you have the 49ers, you know what I mean? You have, who else am I forgetting there? The Arizona Cardinals. So you have these teams in this division. You know for a fact that you have to be ready. You have to be able to score points, and you have to be able to play some type of semblance of defense. So got to give Seattle credit there. And ultimately, because they crashed and burned late in the year, can they sustain going this year? Because looking at their offseason approach, they made a lot of change going into Seattle, in Seattle going into this offseason. Sam Darnold and Geno Smith out, so Geno is no longer there. You got Sam Darnold there. They signed him on a 3-year, $100.5 million contract. Essentially, it's a 2-year deal. They can get off his contract within 2 years, so keep that in mind. They were also able to grab Cooperkupp, wide receiver, a long-time wide receiver from the Los Angeles Rams. So division rival was able to sign him, 3 years, $45 million. In the case of Darnold, you got to be happy for Sam Darnold because, again, came off that season in Minnesota where played well, didn't have the playoff game that he hoped, didn't have some of those games down the stretch that he would have wished to, I'm pretty sure he would have wished to have had back. But that being the case, still got to the playoffs for the first time in his career, led a team to 14 wins, showed when he had talent around him, he could be productive and he could play at a high level. So got to give Sam Darnold credit for that. However, the fact that Minnesota let him go, the fact that he signed a 3-year deal, that's essentially a 2-year deal, you'll see that here on the screen via spotrec.com. There is a way for them to get out this contract within 2 years without them having to pay him for the full 3. Darnold really is playing to prove himself because they did grab Jalen Milroe in the second round. So we all know Jalen Milroe is highly talented, especially as a runner, just needs to develop as a passer. But that being said, Sam Darnold is still on the clock. So though they signed him to this big deal, let's not misconstrue ourselves. They definitely want Sam Darnold to prove himself and really play at an exceptional rate for him to even justify being there for 3 years and commanding that type of contract. Cooper Kupp, I think he's lost a step, but nonetheless, definitely could be a big help to Jackson Smith and Jigba. And also, too, you figure they grabbed Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They re-signed offensive tackle Josh Jones. They re-signed Ernest Jones, the fourth linebacker. They re-signed Jerron Reed, defensive tackle. They made a lot of good moves, even getting DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive end from formerly of the Dallas Cowboys. Made a lot of good, solid moves in free agency. A lot of these moves, especially the Sam Darnold move, the DeMarcus Lawrence move, I would even argue the Cooper Kupp move. These are all going to be based on health. Because if these guys are healthy, I do expect them to support, play well, and put on. But if they're not healthy, that's a lot of money allocated to resources that potentially might not help the team. John Snyder just secured a long-term extension last week. We'll see. He's been a proven GM there in Seattle. He pretty much knows what he's doing. We'll see if these moves work, because I do think that this was a major risk. Because Geno, even though Geno is not an all-world quarterback, even though he is not, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar or Josh Allen or Burrow, he's not any of those guys. He's still a serviceable quarterback who can get you to the playoffs. That being said, when you got off of him, it was pretty much indicative of you saying that you needed to be better at that position. So you feel Sam Darnold is better. He's got to definitely show out and show up. And if he doesn't, Seattle will be hoping to get off that contract a lot sooner than expected. Again, and DeMarcus Lawrence, his issues literally last year was just health. Once he got injured, that just put him out of it. But he was getting sacks at a high clip early in the season. So if he's healthy, a year, it usually takes guys a year or two to come back from that type of injury. So maybe he's back at a high rate. Maybe it takes him a little while to knock the rust off. But I like the signings overall by the Seahawks. They were overall solid. So got to give them credit there. Like I said, and then looking at the draft, first round, you make a great move by locking up offensive guard Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. This guy looks like the prototypical guard in today's NFL. Big, physical, mauling type of guard. And then in the second round, as I aforementioned, previously in the show, Jalen Milroe, they got him in the second round out of Alabama. Again, great athlete as far as running, needs to develop as a passer. The Seahawks are clearly making moves to make the offensive line better now, later, and they're also ensuring that if the Sam Darnold experiment does not work, they do have someone else in the fold that could take the reins and potentially lead this team where they want it to go. So I definitely like the moves that they made there. And then to compound things, I think one of the things that definitely needs to get better for the Seattle team is rushing the football. I like Kenneth Walker the third a lot. I like Zach Charbonnet. Just running backs, period. I like them. I think they are very good running backs. However, the rushing attack was so just inconsistent last year. It really hurt this team. It really put Seattle behind the 8 ball, put them in situations where they really couldn't capitalize on short down and distance situations. Kenneth Walker the third plays 12 games. Zach Charbonnet finishes out the season. Again, you'll see their stats here on the screen. You're just looking at it where hopefully you can get a situation where maybe these guys can put a full season together healthy. Because I do think with them being together healthy, they can be one of the better two-headed running back tandems, not condoms, tandems. Two-headed running back tandems that could be dominant within the NFL. And I just ultimately think that they didn't really get enough opportunities last year. Looking here, again, Kenneth Walker the third last year, again, played 12 games, 573 yards, only 3.7 per carry, not great. 7 touchdowns, 46 receptions. And then you got Zach Charbonnet, 135 attempts, rushing attempts, 569 yards. He averaged more yards per attempt, and he had 8 touchdowns and 42 receptions. So, splitting the bill. You can't really knock it too much. I like that. I like that approach by Seattle. Like I said, if they're doing that, they could be one of the better tandems in the NFL and definitely could put Seattle on the map offensively. Looking here, though, at their rankings. Now, Seattle's rankings is kind of misleading because, again, for a 10-win team, you'll see where they lacked in certain areas, and it was one of the major reasons of why they missed the playoffs last year. Offensively, you had a team that was ranked 18th in points, 14th in yards. So, gotta love that there. Offensive passing stats, 8th in passing yards. So they were able to move the ball with Geno. Definitely could move the ball. And in rushing stats wise, they were 28th in yards. So clearly couldn't move the ball. Turnover percentage was high too. So when you turn the ball over at a high clip, not running the ball well, so you're not protecting it well or running it well, it's just a rat bastard situation where you're putting yourself in a situation to essentially lose the fucking football game, because you're not going to be able to overcome so many turnovers or overcome that inconsistent play every day and every Sunday. So just did not help there. And then defensively, 11th points, 14th in yards. So that was outstanding there. And then also too, rushing stats, the defense was 16th in rushing yards. So and 11th in passing yards. So the defense is essentially what you would hang your hat on if you're the Seattle Seahawks. They ultimately are the bread and butter for this team. Mike McDonald has come in and went offseason and put his stamp on his roster, and you clearly can see that this is the ilk and the mold of what he's trying to build there in Seattle. But major questions. One, I don't see them taking a step back defensively, but I could definitely see them potentially taking a step back offensively. They're not, I don't think, with the loss of DK Metcalf, him and Njigba, Jackson Smith and Njigba, that was a very good tandem. Him no longer being there and having Cooperkupp and having, some guys, I don't know how that's really going to play out. MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, hasn't really been the same in about a couple of years. He's just kind of been like a body unless he's played for the Packers or the Chiefs. Outside of that, really hasn't been much. So Seattle's definitely got some questions to answer because they took some risks. And now they can get out of these risks within a year or two, but they took some risks, and they're definitely looking for them to pay off and definitely are going with the new approach. So we shall see how everything plays out. But the major question for them is, can Seattle with Sam Darnold take the next step offensively to put this team into the postseason? Now, that is an interesting question because I do believe that that's possible. I mean, Sam Darnold helped lead the Vikings to 14 wins last year and got them into the postseason. So I definitely could see him winning 10 or 11 games and getting into the postseason with Seattle. So best case scenario, I do have the Seattle Seahawks at 10 wins. However, injuries, inconsistent play, as I previously stated with Sam Darnold all last year, the Cinderella slipper that he was wearing was going to fall off at some point. Maybe he never got it back. Who knows? It's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, like I said, worst case scenario though, I can see them being an 8-win team, but I don't see them dropping below 10 wins. I think they're going to be somewhere around 10, best case scenario, and they're going to be competing for the playoffs and putting themselves in a situation where they should have been last year, which is possibly playing a game not just in the postseason, but win enough to possibly play a home game. Now, they weren't better than the Rams. The Rams ultimately secured the division from them, but Seattle had plenty of opportunities to steal it, and they didn't. And hopefully for them this year, they can capitalize on that and play better and be dominant again within the NFC West. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I love you guys for always plugging in. Don't forget, there's going to be another episode coming up of this 32 Teams in 32 Days segment. We're going to lead this all the way up to the middle of the month, and then we're going to compound this some more with some more NFL preseason notes, so definitely stay tuned for that video. I have that video dropping later on today as well. But take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hey to all my fans and subscribers out in the UK. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to make something of your week, then look no further than the Viagogo, the #2 leading ticket seller in the world for live events, shows, and concerts. Definitely check it out. If you're looking for exclusive tickets, look in the description of my videos on the Blunt Talk Sports podcast. Take care and enjoy your day.
I'm on ya. Bad, 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 bad.